The year is 2002. We have just seen a rough cut of the film that you all know and love or hate or are ambivalent to, called Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the follow-up smashing success to the first film in the Harry Potter franchise. And we have some thoughts as meddling producers do. So we are here to fix it. Cue that intro. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. I'm here joined once again by Brian to talk about Harry Potter. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was wondering, I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we dive into the film because you're in higher education. You
I
work
am.
as an assistant to the principal at a private school.
Indeed,
Um,
indeed, yeah.
so, how dangerous is Hogwarts? I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean the level of student risk that they're comfortable with is a shocking to me. Even now I'm reading it and I'm like, McGonagall, you let that happen? But then I have to remember, like, we don't like, we're Americans, so we don't even know what it's like to live at a place. Like, of course, in higher ed, it's not uncommon for students to live on campus, but rarely do professors live in the same building that the students do.
Oh, true, true,
Um,
true.
and that's like, that has a much longer history, certainly in Europe and the British sort of university model. But to us, it just strikes us as downright strange to
It
like
is a
know
little
where your
bit.
professor sleeps at night.
Yeah. It is a little bit strange. And then,
Yeah.
they fly through teachers and they're like, oh, just don't go to the third floor or else you'll die.
Yeah.
So,
Or like their history of magic teacher is actually dead. It's like a dead
yeah,
person.
there's a ghost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a ghost. Yeah.
They
So
just got up one day and kept teaching.
yeah. Which is awesome because that's like, I mean, I get the appeal of free labor. So if I could hire a teacher, but like not have to pay them or feed them or house them, like
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, um,
I love
yeah,
it.
Hogwarts, man.
All right. So let's talk about the Chamber of Secrets. We're going to talk about what we like, what we maybe would want to fix. By
Mhm.
rules of the show, the fix is just something small that a producer could change after they'd seen the majority of the film. So no big sweeping monumental changes here. But before we do that, we need to talk about what happens in the Chamber of Secrets. Brian, what happens in the second Harry Potter film?
All right. Well, so we pick up as all stories do, at least in the Harry Potter world. We pick up with Harry Potter at the Dursleys' house, at his aunt and uncle's house during the summer, anxiously awaiting his newfound home, Hogwarts. All summer long, he's quite distressed. He has not spoken to or heard from his friends all summer, and he's quite heartbroken by this. He made these new friends. They're in the magical world. He finally finds a place where he belongs, real friends that are kind to him, and they sort of go through all their adventures, and then crickets, and then nothing.
Mhm.
He finds out at the end of the summer that there's a small house elf that is, in his own peculiar way, trying to protect Harry Potter, but by trying to keep him from going back to Hogwarts. That little house elf ends up causing some major difficulties at his aunt and uncle's house. His aunt and uncle, of course, hate him, hate Harry Potter, and the house elf ends up dropping some pudding or something, a big pudding cake, on their company, and lock him in his room and say, "You're never going back. You're never going back to that crazy school full of very strange people." So his friend Ron decides that he's had enough of not hearing from Harry. Ron has, in fact, been writing him letters, but Dobby, the house elf, has been capturing them and holding him. Ron decides to break him out. So they use their dad's flying car. They break him out of his home and they set off back to the magical world. But Dobby's not finished yet. Harry and Ron, while they're trying to get to platform 9 3/4, Dobby blocks the way and prevents Harry from going. So they jump back in the flying car and they fly back to Hogwarts. This gets them to even more trouble as the car ends up crashing into a tree, causing a bunch of damage. They've broken magical law by being seen by muggles and a bunch of other things. It's a sort of mess. Harry thinks he's going to get expelled, but he doesn't. But this begins the sort of adventures in year 2 of Hogwarts for him. as he continues on with his schooling, strange things start happening. Um, and people begin to um, get petrified. There we go. And that means they're frozen. They're sort of unconscious in their own little world. They're not dead. They appear dead, but they're not. They're merely petrified. And they have to wait until these small animals are well grown enough that they can sort of unpetrify people without killing them. So you're sort of stuck with all these petrified people, and more things start happening. Um, they quickly realize that the people that are getting petrified are all what they call Muggle-born wizards or Muggle-born witches. They're all people that are non-magical, or that I'm sorry, that have non-magical parents. They are magical, they have non-magical parents, and that's sort of problematic, which we're going to get to in a second. But there's some patterns here going on. Harry Potter has a new defense against the dark arts teacher, which he also is sort of annoyed by because this person is vain and self-centered, but otherwise innocuous in sort of in terms of the plot. As they begin realizing bad things are happening, the fear level begins to grow at Hogwarts. Everybody becomes scared, and the rumors start flying that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened, and the only person that can open the Chamber of Secrets is Slytherin, or the founder of Slytherin, Salazar Slytherin's heir. And then they start to think, well, this must be Harry Potter. Harry Potter must be the heir. And in fact, Harry Potter has some really strong similarities to Salazar Slytherin. He can speak parcel tongue. He can speak snake language. So snake language is this special language that nobody else has. It's incredibly rare in the magical world, but Harry Potter has this thing. So people start suspecting Harry Potter is the real heir of Slytherin. Harry, Ron, and Hermione hatch a plan. They're going to break into Slytherin's common house, and they're going to find out who the real heir is, because Slytherins must know. They're just keeping it quiet. They do this. Hermione can't go because she turns herself into a cat accidentally. But they don't find out anything. They know that it's not Draco Malfoy who they thought it was, and they know that the Slytherins, in fact, don't know who the heir of Slytherin is. More people start getting petrified, and eventually we find out that there's lots of Slytherins that really hate people that don't have pure blood magical abilities. They are special families that are better than others because they're pure blood magical people. And in fact, Draco Malfoy is one of these people and really hates Hermione and is very cruel to her. And throughout all this, people are getting petrified. They're all what they call mudbloods, these sort of dirty blood people. And eventually they find out that that the chamber has been opened and there's a dark monster in there. Harry, simultaneously to this, and somewhat independent to that plot point, at least independent for the time being, he comes across this very odd diary. And this diary, as you write in it, the diary writes back. And the original owner, Tom Riddle, starts writing back to Harry, and he gets sort of sucked into the diary, and he realizes the chamber was open, in fact, 50 years ago. When the chamber was originally open, Hagrid was a student. Tom Riddle tells him through the diary. And in fact, Hagrid gets kicked out of Hogwarts. He gets expelled from Hogwarts because they think he opened the Chamber of Secrets. They think he invited whatever it is that is petrifying all these wizards and young wizards and witches.
There you go.
Like, right words, yeah. So they keep going. Harry Potter continues to be talking to this diary. He eventually, somebody steals it from him. He doesn't really know what's going on. And Hermione gets petrified. And then Harry Potter finally realizes, oh my gosh, I know what this thing is. It's a basilisk. Honestly, I'm drawing a blank now on what the sort of major discovery was, what the plot point was that allowed him to discover it's a basilisk, but he sort of figures it out. That it's this basilisk, a very large snake, and a special kind of snake that killed Moaning Myrtle, this ghost that haunts one bathroom, and then he pieces it all together. Oh my gosh, that's where the opening of the Chamber of Secrets is, and he and Ron go down.
Right. So the whole
Ron
point is the basilisk kills you if you look directly at it, but up till now, no one has looked directly at the basilisk. Somebody saw it through the Ghost Nearly Headless Nick. Somebody
Excellent.
saw it through Colin Creevy saw it through the camera. Mrs. Norris, the cat, saw it through a reflection. Hermione, when she is petrified, is holding a mirror, and so Harry deduces that it must be a basilisk because
Yeah.
yeah.
And those are all important points because, again, as Dan mentioned, no one's looked at it directly. So Harry has to be very, very careful because he looks at this basilisk, he himself is going to die instantly and have no chance to even fight it. So he and Ron end up getting into the Chamber of Secrets, and they realize that who has been controlling this basilisk has in fact been Ginny Weasley, Ron's little sister, who's a first year at at Hogwarts. She actually was attacked by Tom Riddle. She's very close to death. Harry discovers her. He fights Tom Riddle, which he now has realized is actually Voldemort. Tom Marvolo Riddle is sort of rearranged as I am Voldemort. And now a battle ensues. Harry ends up fighting the basilisk and defeating it using the Sword of Gryffindor, sort of stabbing the Sword of Gryffindor. Very, very important in the long-term plot points for the Harry Potter narrative. But for now, the Sword of Gryffindor has saved him from this basilisk, but not without getting stabbed in the arm, if I remember right, with a basilisk himself. So he's now got basilisk venom in him. But Harry Potter's devout loyalty to Dumbledore ends up summoning this Phoenix, and Phoenix shows up, fights the basilisk, also blinds him, helps Harry Potter defeat him, and then drops some healing tears onto Harry Potter's arm, and Harry is saved. So he, Ginny, and Ron leave, and it's been saved. Again, very important for these long-term plot points, the diary itself, Harry stabs with a basilisk fang, which has the venom in it. So the diary is somehow destroyed with this fang. Sort of lingering mystery, somewhat of a throwaway point at this point in the story, but it's going to come back very importantly later on in the story, which we can talk about in a few podcasts from now. And that's it. They sort of save the day. The plants. Do you remember the name of those plants?
Mandrakes.
What? Oh, mandrakes. Thank you. So the mandrakes are now grown enough that they can unpetrify people. They unpetrify Hermione and Colin Creevy and the cat, and they sort of bring everybody back, and Hogwarts is saved. Yes. And that's the narrative of movie 2.
Yes, well done, well done. Well, I'm going to give you a chance to catch your breath and talk about some of the things that I love about the Chamber of Secrets. So, first off, casting wise, the cast is always amazing, but I like to, in each of these podcasts that we do, call out a couple of people from the cast who have done a fantastic job. And for me, it's the Malfoys. So Jason Isaacs as Lucius Malfoy and Tom Felton as Draco do such a good job here at that father and son dynamic. Jason Isaacs is conniving and cruel to Dobby and to his own son. And so you see that. You see Tom Felton get to shine, especially in that scene where Harry and Ron are taking the Polyjuice potion. They're pretending to be Crabbe and Goyle. They're in that Slytherin common room. And he gets to really chew the scenery and filthy mudbloods and all of that stuff. Really, really great. The other person to give a shout out to is Kenneth Branagh as Professor Lockhart, who is amazing in this. Just
yes.
It's some of my favorite just scenery stealing moments. Just absolutely fantastic. The whole thing where he's so vain and he's just so full of himself, and the quizzes are all about him. It's some really good comedy there. He plays it really well. And at the end, when he turns on Harry and Ron in the chamber because they go get him to help, thinking that he's this amazing wizard who's conquered so many different challenges in the past. And it turns out that he's just really good at a memory charm. He uses Ron's broken wand. It backfires. So funny, but also he can play that kind of really antagonistic force. Really well done. Really well done. Now, this is the last one that Chris Columbus directs.
Yeah.
And I talked last time about some of the stuff that he did really well. I want to just continue that by saying that the first 2 films here do such a great job sticking as close to the books as they possibly can. And it pays off really, really well in the long term, which you alluded to. They didn't know that when they were making this, they didn't know that the diary was going to be a Horcrux. Nobody knew what a Horcrux was.
Exactly. Yeah.
So important, the Sword of Gryffindor coming out of the hat and taking in everything that it comes in against, which makes it even stronger. Super important plot points. Even the Polyjuice potion, super
Yeah.
important plot point that comes back later. And if you think about even some of the smaller details, like back to the first film, where Harry swallows the snitch, that would be such an easy thing to not put in. And they kept it, and it comes back, 7 films later, that
Yeah.
adds his imprint is because he swallowed it. Really, really good. Ollivander is there. Dobby, they come back, of course, in the last films, and really complete the story. So they didn't do it knowing what was coming, and so they had to keep everything in, and they did such a good job. Hats off to Chris Columbus. Hats off to Steve Kloves who wrote it, because they did such a great job keeping everything in that they possibly could without knowing what was coming in the future. And then my last thing, I just love the character dynamic foreshadowing here. Again, I don't know if they knew yet that Ginny would wind up with Harry, but I love that she has that little moment where she's all shy and clearly got this crush on him.
Yeah.
I love at the end when Hermione is unfrozen and her and Ron kind of have this awkward like handshake. They're not gonna hug or anything because there's something there too. So
Yeah.
well done, Chamber of Secrets. Well done.
um, so it's funny, like listening to you talk, you actually sell me. So I'll be totally forthright.
Yeah.
Chamber of Secrets is my least favorite book and my least favorite movie by
Wow.
far. Like I honestly find it somewhat boring. I think it drags on. I might touch on this a little bit when I get to fixing it, but I didn't find it nearly as engaging as the others. However, I do think their Chris Columbus's quite obvious self-conscious choice to stay so close to the plot points of the books does reap benefits. And we can talk a little bit when we get to like movie 4.
Mhm.
They make some really deep cuts
Yeah.
that can't then pay off. So those cuts like they end up not being able to circle back to these really powerful moments later on in the story because as the darker side of the story begins to unfold, they cut those parts out. Um and you're right, like that, Harry catching the snitch in his mouth in movie 1, it takes 8 movies later, 7 movies later to for that to pay off.
Mhm.
But if they hadn't included that one little line, now you're stuck. Like
Right.
now the reveal later on is lost. So you have to somehow like circle back to it or sort of shoehorn it in. And you're absolutely right. And they do a lot of that here. Um, yeah, I won't go into movie 4, but they tee it up. They
Yeah.
talk about how Hagrid was expelled from Hogwarts, and how devastating that was to him. And I'm really glad they stay so close to those plot points because that's another one that could easily be dismissed or sort of retooled in the story to not have that point. Like you don't need Hagrid there necessarily to drive the story forward, but they
Mhm.
do include it quite intentionally. Um, I also, what else did I really like? I always like the play between Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Mhm.
They're really like they're his family, and he's never had family before. And something that even the movies show and are even more pronounced in the books is that the stories are constantly playing with like isolation and belonging. And in this story, Harry finds himself being something of a social pariah because everybody thinks he's a dark wizard. Everybody thinks that he's actually the heir of Slytherin that is playing with the basilisk, intentionally targeting mudbloods. He himself is a parcel tongue. He has opened the Chamber of Secrets, so everybody suspects him.
Yeah.
So even at this place, again, Hogwarts is his home. Even at his home, he now finds himself quite isolated from the people around him. And Ron and Hermione are his family. Ron and Hermione are the people that sort of always make him feel like he belongs, even when he's in isolation. And I think the movie just does a really good job playing with that. Um, at several moments
Even
where they're
comes
like,
back in later films when he and Ron and Hermione literally are isolated against the wizarding world at large who have turned on him.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like I really love this. This seems again quite intentional on J.K. Rowling's side. When she's writing the story, she is like keenly aware of how Harry is constantly feeling, and she brings your attention to it as a reader. And then in the movies, they really play this up also. That Harry is he like goes back when he's feeling so alone. He goes back to Ron and Hermione.
Mhm.
And to a lesser extent, but a very important sense, Hagrid as well. Hagrid's another person that's just always kind to him, always has loved him, always been kind to him. And these are places where he finds his sense of connection, the closest version he has to family. And I always find, at Christmas time, Harry opens up a present from, Molly Weasley, Ron's mother, and it's always, some ugly sweater, but he loves it because he gets to open presents. Um, and I'm always touched by this aspect of the story, this notion of belonging. So those are some things I really liked.
I love that. I love that. I mean, your insights are beautiful, and this is my favorite of all the Harry Potter
Which is
movies.
crazy to me.
It holds up really well. I was worried upon rewatch, like I saw this one forever ago, and it's a kids movie and stuff. It's amazing, and it makes me feel like a kid again. The way the music swells and it brings me back, and I absolutely love it. It's not my favorite book, nor my least favorite, but it is my favorite of all eight films.
Mm.
So, but
Yeah,
we have to fix it
I'll
by
fix
rule of the show.
it.
So my fix for this is to give Hermione a little bit more to do. It's an intentional choice, obviously, from the books to have Harry and Ron kind of in the fight at the end and everything. So I want to give Hermione just a little moment, just an extra little scene here where she figures it out because she does figure it out. She knows what it is. That's why she's got the mirror, but we don't see that happen. In the books, we don't see, for lack of a better word, a lot of what happens outside of Harry seeing it.
Yeah.
The story's told through Harry's eyes. So if there's something about Dumbledore, he's reading a book about Dumbledore. If it's something with Voldemort, he's connected to Voldemort in his mind and he can see it.
And that's a really interesting. I don't mean to cut off your like
No, no,
train
no.
of thought, but it's something that J.K. Rowling does a great job of sticking so close to that principle.
Hmm.
You don't get into anybody else's head. You get a glimpse into the interior lives of all the other characters only through what they tell to Harry.
Yes.
And she sticks so close to that, and she does a great job. But yeah, no, I think spot
She
on.
does. It's phenomenal. And so when Hermione is petrified, Harry and Ron aren't there. So in the book, we don't see it happening. They kind of find out about it later. What I want to do is add in a scene of her in the library going through books, going through books. She's trying to figure it out. She's trying to figure it out. Ginny walks in, and Ginny looks a little bit kind of out of place, and she's a little bit discombobulated. And she said, "Is Harry here?" And Hermione's like, "No, no, he's not here," thinking that this is just Jenny looking for her crush. And Jenny's like,
Mhm.
oh, and she walks away. And then Hermione hears the hissing because Jenny is controlling the basilisk at this point. And Hermione figures out what it is. She grabs the mirror, she holds it up, and we cut. And so we give her a little bit of a heroic moment. And we also give the audience a little bit of an oh crap moment for Hermione because we're really, really worried about her.
Yeah,
Give Emma Watson a little bit more there. That's my only little critique for this film.
yeah. Um, I mean that's actually a really great fix. I would love to watch that scene and see that because again, the way that Ginny plays out is like it's a reveal that like Ginny's been controlling it, but it sort of falls flat, or it maybe doesn't even fall flat. You don't feel anything about it
Hmm.
because you're so worried about Harry getting attacked by the basilisk that when you finally realize it's like Ginny is the big reveal, Harry's getting attacked by Tom Riddle. So
Hmm.
Tom Riddle is like sort of revealing, but you're seeing Tom Riddle as Voldemort, and the fact that Ginny is part of it is sort of an unnecessary addition. Um, so yeah, that would have given the audience like, oh, oh no, it's actually Ginny. And that's tees up and actually adds to the tension later on when Harry goes down. He's trying to find Ginny, who the audience sees as actually like a part of the evil. Like
Yeah.
she's gone bad. We don't know that like she's been controlled by Tom yet. That would have been awesome. That's a great fix.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
So how about
so
you fix your least favorite Harry Potter film?
I struggle with this honestly, and it's funny, audience. Dan and I don't talk ahead of time about what our fix is, or sort of like this is we're revealing this to each other as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I have several fixes, but I'll stick to just a few points that I would change. One is I think that this movie itself, the tone that Chris Columbus chose is too light.
Hmm.
It's excuse me, it's playful. It's a kids movie. Chris Columbus's background, of course, is working with child actors and making children's movies like family movies. Um, but I think that doesn't serve this story well. I think it is a darker story, and the kind of playful, sort of silly tone that he takes when the car is getting attacked by the tree, or when Ron and Harry go into the forest and they're attacked by Aragog, the big giant spider. There's too much comic relief. Ron, and actually throughout the movie, I find is only used as comic relief. He sort of cuts the tension and doesn't allow it to build more and more. Um, so I would just change the tone of the movie and bring it back again, keep it focused on Harry, and stop using Ron as like comic relief to an otherwise very serious and high tense moments. And again, this happens in the forest. This happens when they go down to,
Fighters, yeah.
yeah. Over and over again, they just keep doing this, and that I wish they stuck to the tone. So tonally, it feels off for me. Um, I also wish that they had. I'll add a scene just like you. I really wish that they had played up Hagrid's devastation
Hmm.
at his expulsion. So when they show you that Hagrid um was expelled, he's a fourth year student. You do see a young Dumbledore when Dumbledore was only a professor, not yet headmaster. Um, but this you find out later, and they don't even need to like reveal future plot points, but you find out Hagrid is a lot like Harry in this sense. Hagrid doesn't really have any family, and Hogwarts is his home. He's got nowhere else to go. Um, and to take that away from Hagrid is as emotionally crushing as it would be for Harry. Um, and I don't feel like that landed. So one more scene where we sort of see Hagrid and people think that Aragog, the little spider, is actually the basilisk. That's the big monster. Um, but one more scene with just Dumbledore and Hagrid, where Hagrid is just sobbing.
Hmm.
And Hagrid kind of cries a lot in the books too, so it's not
Mhm.
all that weird. But where Hagrid is just devastated, and he sort of wonders to himself, "What do I do now? Where do I go?"
Yeah.
And I'm not giving away major points to say like his mother has abandoned him and his father is dead. So he has no home to go to.
Yeah.
And then Dumbledore steps in and says, Hagrid, I know that this has happened outside of my control, but I want you to stay here on the grounds. I want you to just be our gamekeeper. This will give you a place. You don't have to leave your home. You get a livelihood. And then Hagrid has this little glimpse of hope. And now you know. So what this has done is it's bought you Hagrid's loyalty to Dumbledore, which
Yeah.
is like unwavering throughout the story.
Yeah.
And it pays off these moments where like no one speaks bad about Dumbledore in my presence. Like now you know. This is why, because Dumbledore saved Hagrid. Dumbledore kept like protected him and gave him a home and believed him, put his trust in Hagrid, and Hagrid repays the favor, tenfold over and over and over again. This is why. Dumbledore says at one point, I don't remember which story it was, like, I would trust Hagrid with my life. Um, that right there's this bond that they have together because in this moment of desperation, Dumbledore saved Hagrid when Hagrid was unjustly accused of opening Chamber of Secrets and expelled.
Yeah.
So I wish there was this moment that brings that home, and that all these other moments now get paid off. So I would add that one extra scene with Hagrid.
I love that so much. And I think that that comes from the very first film in the prologue when McGonagall's like, oh, who's bringing the baby? Who's bringing the child? And Dumbledore's like, Hagrid. You would trust Hagrid? I would trust him with my life. So you
Yeah. Oh,
have that already. Like just just ties it in even more. I love that. Yeah.
yeah. So that would be my fix. Those two things. Change the tone, I think the sort of tonal disconnections for me,
Uh-huh.
and then add this one extra scene to Hagrid and sort of drive that point home.
Excellent. Well, audience, what do you think? Do you think that we need more from Hermione here? Do you think that we need the tone? Is the tone a little bit off in this one? I mean, obviously, the next one goes different direction totally with tone.
Yep.
Do you want more with Hagrid and Dumbledore, a little bit more in that to show that relationship? Do you think that it needs to be shorter, longer? What do you think? Whatever it is, write it down in the comments. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Stick around because we are going to be doing The Prisoner of Azkaban next.
We
You
sure are.
So, from all of us here at the Mirror Movie Universe, just wanted to say, God loves you. And Brian says, and so do we.
And so do we. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.